Hey, how you doing? This is Ray Jones from Black-Empowerment.org, and I basically just want to discuss last week's blog and also bring an introduction to next week's blog. All right, last week's blog we talked about the importance of discussing racism. You know, how important it is to talk about it. Okay, we need to actually talk about it. We need to figure out how to demolish the system of white supremacy, of racism. And basically, that's very important. So, a few key points to bring out. In the blog, I brought out what racism is. You know, I talk about that in the blog. But a very important question that we have to look at and answer is very important. Are all white people racist? All right? The question, are all white people racist? And absolutely not. You know, all white people are not racist. All white people are not even prejudiced. Okay? I want to be very clear about that because I'm talking about race, and I want you to clearly understand that in no way, shape, or form am I saying that all white people are racist. Okay? Very clear. No. The answer to that question. But we do live in a system of white supremacy. Yes. So there are very wealthy white people and some that are not wealthy that practice racism. And the reason it's the system of white supremacy is a few reasons. White people are the only race that can really truly exercise racism. There's a difference between racism and prejudice and bigotry. And I define those in my blog. So you can take a look at that on Black-Empowerment.org. Now, something else that's important to bring out is the American way of black slavery, okay, which ended in 1865, so-called, and the American way of capitalism, which is capitalistic slavery, that takes place from 1865 on up to today. All right? Okay, the American way of black slavery, okay, it encouraged one group, all white people having superior ability and superior lives over black people. It was a group thing, basically is what I'm bringing out. It was about one race gathering up 100% of the wealth and the resources, all right, of America. All right, and so what happened is they switched the game up. They made capitalism, which encourages the individual success of a person. Now, two things about capitalism that is very important for a black person to know. All right, capitalism is built on a hierarchy or a pyramid where white people are at the top and black people are at the very, very bottom. Even under white poor people, black people are made in that system of capitalism to be at the very bottom. And it's not a really fluid type of, it's really fixed. All right, it's really meant to always be that way. Okay, so basically what you'll find is, that's the first thing. Okay, the first thing is that's bad for black people in that system of capitalism is that 100%, or these days in the high 90s, 95, 96, etc. percent of the resources and wealth are owned by white people. Okay, that's the first thing you should know. Secondly, another thing you should factor when it comes to capitalism, all right, is that when a black person decides they're going to go get educated, that they're going to go and get a job, that they're going to go and get a loan from a bank, white people, because they've hoarded up 100% of the resources, own just about all of these institutions. So what does that mean? That means that if they decide, the particular white person or group of white people, to exercise racism against black people, they can, and they do it all the time. Okay, are we talking about all white people? No. But a lot of white people in power exercise that racism. Okay, so when you look at capitalistic slavery, the things I just brought out, and you can couple that with taking a look at the 13th Amendment. All right? Take a look at that. The American 13th Amendment. Basically, it just speaks about slavery being over unless you're a convicted criminal. Now let's think about that. convicted criminals. White supremacy has $1 billion industry from locking us up, locking black people up. Okay, it's $1 billion industry with a B that they have. Okay, they encourage the imprisonment and incarceration of black people. You know, study those numbers and everything for yourself, but it's obvious. It's not something I'm bringing out. It's a very obvious thing. And so that talks about capitalistic slavery and what that is. And basically, the last week's blog is just talking about the importance of talking about it. You know, as black people, we don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it, and we need to acknowledge it. And as I said before, the basic rule, or the first rule of any therapeutic rehabilitation, is to acknowledge that there is a problem. Okay? To acknowledge that racism does exist. That's the first step. And that's where we need to be right now, that racism does exist. And then we can get into what to do about it. But right now, we just need to acknowledge that it exists at all, because there's so many black people who don't even look at it that way. All right? So that's the first thing. And you can visit my blog to get the deep details about that. Now, excuse me, next week's blog, okay, the one that is up right now that I just put up, and I'll be putting these blogs up every Sunday evening. Okay, I'll do a video discussing the last week's blog and introducing the next week's blog. So to introduce the next week's blog this week, I'm discussing 5 black codes of conduct that we should utilize. Okay, what I'm talking about is one of the codes, or just a way of life, is that black empowerment. Okay, having a mind of black empowerment is first over everything. It's first over your religion. It's first over your sexuality. It comes first over whether you're rich or poor, or whether you're a black man or a black woman. The issue of black empowerment should come before all of it, because when they shoot us down in the street, you know, racist cops and things like that, they don't stop to ask if you're gay or not first. They don't stop to say, hey, are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? They just shoot you down because you're black. And so we have to realize that it's very important to have a black code of conduct. And basically what I'm saying is black empowerment over everything just means how you worship, where you worship, and what you're worshiping, and all that should tie you into your black empowerment. If it's not going to empower you as a black person, there's no reason to worship a God or in any form that's not going to give you black empowerment. And I'm not saying I don't believe in God. I'm just saying any church you go to, if they're not talking about black empowerment, you know, what are we really talking about? You know, if you're not talking about racism, if you're not talking about entrepreneurship, what are we talking about? You know, so that's first. Okay, another code is for black people to stop repeating the same historical mistakes. All right, integration, God bless our ancestors, and they gave everything they had. Integration was a mistake. It was a lie. We're not supposed to integrate. Basically because integrating just basically keeps white supremacy at its finest. You know, it basically says we need white people to thrive, and that's not the case. The Asian community doesn't utilize the white population to thrive as far as having to integrate. And it just doesn't make sense at all. So that's another code. Stop making those same historical mistakes. The historical mistake we made first was befriending the European. And the European people have a history of befriending a race and just absolutely stabbing them in the back at the end. And so it doesn't mean that all white people perpetuate that now, but we need to stop putting our race and its very prosperity at risk to be down with some other people. We have to be self-sufficient first, all right? And basically, I talk about adopting invention rather than integration. So basically, it just means, listen, if you're going to school and being educated, or if you have a job, or whatever you're doing, whether it's a job or education, it should be en route to ownership of your own business or inventing something, okay? Jobs and going to school forever are not permanent fixtures. You're not supposed to get a job and work until you're 75 and retire not making a difference in your life at all, and you can still get fired. You're supposed to be using the job, to go and open a business of your own or invent for yourself. Okay, and I also have another section in this week's blog that's talking about aggregating money and what that is, aggregating black money. I discussed that in the blog. You can check that out. And I also discuss the relationship between a black husband and a black wife. What I point out in this section is that the whole equal, unequal argument between a man and a woman, rather the man and the woman are equal or unequal, I point out how that is nothing but a tool of white supremacy, that whole scale and measurement of talking about whether a man and a woman are equal or not. I talk about historically how Europeans are separatists, and that whole man dominating woman stuff typically comes from European history. I talk about how the black man should lead his family, not because the woman bowed down and worships the man and all of that crazy nonsense like he's ruling over her, but the man should lead his family because he's on the front line. All right, he's on the front line protecting, he's on the front line providing, and if anybody has to die in a certain situation, he should be the first one there to die for his family. So he leads in that way. All right, now talk about the black woman being the actual lifeblood of her family. Okay, she provides stability, she provides nurturing in a way that maybe a man cannot. And that's not because she has to do some lower level role. That role is very important, because if that man dies for his family, the woman is still there with stability in the meantime to take care of that family and hold it down. So basically we just talk about a few black codes, a few black ways that black people, we should communicate and live. Please leave your comments, let me know if you agree, disagree, anything, let me know. So you can visit my blog. It's up now, the one from last week as well as this week going forward, at www.black-empowerment.org. So take a look at the website, browse the website, leave your comments, share the blog, share the website, and let's just really discuss everything that is going on.